Okay, so I want to start this video by thanking Van Prepper. Today I went on YouTube and I noticed that he subscribed to my channel and he shared my video, SHTF. I really, really appreciate that. I can't thank you enough for that whole thing. I'm a very, very small channel. I've got, I don't know, 10 subscribers or something. And I have seen your videos before. I did not subscribe for whatever reason. Maybe I was drunk or high, or maybe I'm in New York State and it's begun to screw with my mind. But I've lived here my entire life. So you think the screwiness would just sort of go out the other side, but it's New York, man. Anyway, I want to talk about the gun community. Now, in my view, the gun community is an extremely welcoming bunch of people. In my experience, when you go to a range and you start talking to people, they're usually quite friendly. And you get to discuss things that you enjoy and everything like that. And the reason why I believe that the gun community can be very, very tight-knit at times is because we are somewhat of a persecuted group. We are constantly fighting for our rights. We're constantly enduring the attacks from the mainstream media. And a lot of people on the left, or a lot of my liberal friends, and I do consider you my friends even though I disagree with you fundamentally, they seem to think that doesn't exist. Or they themselves actually allow that stereotype to exist. I remember I was arguing with actually a former teacher from high school, and he was talking about the right, respects people's right to hunt, which again is nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Again, spouting the typical rhetoric that happens from people that are on the left that are uncomfortable with the idea of an armed citizenry. You know, respecting the hunting rights, asking, quote, why do you need that or why do you need this? My response has always been, because more than 10 rounds, my life is worth more than that. And it's worth, I mean, in my opinion, the reason why governments ban high-capacity magazines is because they just don't feel like dealing with the paperwork. They don't feel like dealing with the paperwork, and they don't feel comfortable with people actually having that power or that responsibility for themselves. And frankly, they're just covering their asses, and they're trying to make themselves feel good. I'll never forget, as long as I live, what Andrew Cuomo said just prior to the SAFE Act. He's my governor. He's more like my king, though, here in New York State. He said that you don't need more than 10 rounds to kill a deer. Again, that just demonstrates the sheer ignorance of some people, especially people who are in our government, towards our rights. They just don't care. They just don't want to deal with it. They just want to look good, and they just want to make something that seems or makes them sleep well at night. But I tell Andrew Cuomo this, almost as an open letter to him. My life is worth more than 10 rounds. It's worth more than 20 rounds. It's worth more than 30 rounds. It's worth more than 1,000 rounds. My life is worth more than all the bullets in the world. And the fact that I'm not only allowed to keep 10 in my magazine, that just shows you that according to you, my life is only worth about 10 rounds. And in reality, my life is worth far more than that. But sort of getting off topic here. The two factors, and I want to bring this conversation into a more personal level because I do have personal experience with this. I tend to think are the more defensive-minded people who believe in the Second Amendment as the traditional malicious sense, people who believe that the Second Amendment was intended and is intended for self-defense, and who see themselves as defenders of liberty and justice, and they believe that a free society needs to respect the right of the people to keep and bear arms. That's more like the side that I'm on. Then there's the other side, which is the sports side. People who see firearms as sort of a toy, and they're kind of into it, and they say that they support the Second Amendment, but they really don't. They're what we like to call FUD types, people who like to hunt and they like to fish, and occasionally they might pick up a rifle, and they only really care about your infringement on their particular hunting rights. Now, I'm not really a super experienced hunter, nor do I think that hunting is not really my favorite thing to do in the world. I do it. I have done it. I did enjoy it, but I'm not an avid hunter. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it, but it's just not something I like to do very often. I think that when people have that mentality where they almost side with people that are against the Second Amendment when they do that. They say, well, they have a point. Who does need an AR-15? it's just like people on our side, of the civil defense minded people, we're willing to take a bullet for you guys on the sportsman side. We're willing to fight for your right to own every single piece of gun, every firearm that you own. But you're not willing to do the same for us. It seems like a really bitter dichotomy between the two sides, and I really do have a problem with it. I have a problem I have a problem with people who view it as just a pleasure activity or something that people just own, and occasionally you can use it for self-defense, but you mostly use it for sports. Even if that's true, granted, even if that's true, I've never used my gun defensively, and even if that is true, that you're likely going to be using your gun for sporting purposes, fine. That's fine. That's the best case scenario. But again, we can't predict everything that's going to happen. And as I said before, when stuff does go wrong, do you really want that single shot 22 or do you want an AR-15? Do you want your Remington 870 that can only hold 5 rounds, or do you want a Benelli M4 that can hold 7 or 8? It's one of those things where we on the defensive-minded crowd really do want to fight for you guys on the hunting and sportsman's crowd. And then I said to you guys, that I had actual experience with this, experiencing people who were on the sportsman side and just completely seemed to go along with the magazine restrictions and everything the government throws at you. Those people are members of my family, and we do have very, very spirited discussions about it. And to be honest, while I love them as family members, I respect their opinions. I don't agree with it, but I understand it in some crazy mixed up way. I don't think that that's a very healthy attitude. I don't think that that's the intent of I know it's not the intent of the Second Amendment, but it's not a healthy attitude. And why does it exist, though? Why does that exist? Well, it's a basic part of human nature. People are comfortable with what they have, and if they don't desire something, who cares? Who cares about the person down the street? I live comfortably. All human beings do this. Everyone's guilty of it in some way. Even I'm guilty of it. I never take the moral high ground. Or I never pretend that I'm some sort of great, person. Everyone has flaws, and everyone is guilty of that. And that's fine in some regard, because you can't possibly care about every single person on the globe. You drive yourself crazy. But since we all share a common interest, and that is firearms, we ought to be together on all things. Again, I'm not an avid hunter, but I will protect your right to hunt. I will fight for it. I will always fight against people who want to take that away from you, because, in my opinion, taking away something in a free society renders it not a free society. When things are being stripped or taken from you, how can you call that a free society when governments or anybody else has the ability to strip things from you? It's not free at that point. It's only a privileged society, not a free society. But the sportsman crowd, these family members, I remember when the SAFE Act was passed, they seemed to not really care about it. And for me, it was a huge deal. I guess because I may be part of a younger generation and having youthful passion might be part of it. But it was very disappointing, and I do look up to these people or these family members, and I wish that I could get them to understand sometimes. But it just seems that every time a new gun control bill comes along, they just don't care. And to me, that is the most disingenuous thing you can say, especially if you consider yourself a supporter of the Second Amendment. So I don't like to go into the whole thing of black and white, if you're not with us, you're against us stuff. But in this context, sometimes I feel that is true, where your apathy seems to be putting you in line with seems to be putting you in line with the left. If you're willing to comply to that level and not actually engage in a non-violent political discussion and try to fight for these things, then really you might as well just give up your guns right now, because I'm sure that you wouldn't have a problem with it if Governor Cuomo said, well, fuck it, we're going to get rid of all the guns. So, again, I'm not trying to necessarily shit on all sportsmen. I know there are a lot of you guys out there that are very, very passionate about the Second Amendment and are very, very dedicated to the cause. Sorry for the glare here. Let me see if I can switch it a bit. But there is a gap in the gun community I believe needs to be bridged. Now, how do we do this? Well, simply put, People might get a little bit pissed off at me for this, but stop taking your fucking AK-47 into a Starbucks and try to prove something. You're trying to prove that your dick is big. We have to make sure that we maintain face. We do it in a responsible manner. And showing off your fucking huge ass gun to people, who, by the way, the media paints the town red with all the apparent school shootings that go on in this country, when in reality they're actually going down since the 1980s. I don't have the specific statistics in front of me, and I deeply apologize for that. But school shootings have been going down. But the media doesn't care about that. They will paint the town red with those kind of stories. And being that it's in our culture, being that people tend to sort of eat stuff up, sometimes I happen to think that people are, for the most part, smart and good. But sometimes we get fooled. And everyone's subject to that. So really, stop doing that. Stop it. You're not helping anybody. You're not helping anybody by being belligerent. You're not helping anybody by posting videos of you interacting with cops in a negative way. You don't know if these police officers are pro-Second Amendment or not. But if you go to them and you have a gun in your hand and you're running around like that and you start acting belligerent, what do you think they're going to act like? Like, if you worked in a, I don't know, you worked in a machine shop and somebody walked in with a sledgehammer and was lightly tapping on one of the machines, and you said, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" And the guy said, I'm just standing here doing nothing." You would get a little bit suspicious, especially if it's on private property. Especially that, because all these stores are essentially private property. They are private property. So it's the same thing. It's the same measure of respect that we have to pay to people that we want to receive. We have to make sure that we maintain logic and morality and all that kind of stuff. And really, if you're out showing off your great AK-47 at a fucking Walmart, why? Like, why are you doing that? You know it's going to cause problems, and you know it's going to only fuel the liberal tiers. So, to bridge the gap, really the answer is quite simple. In your daily life, in the way you conduct yourself, be rational, be sympathetic. That's the most important part. Sympathetic and empathetic. Make sure you try to understand the other person's perspective while not necessarily compromising your own views. And mostly just be a good person. And just respect the tools that you have at your disposal. Know that we're one of the few countries in the world that lets us have those rights. So yeah, it's just some of my musings about the gun community and the gun culture and everything like that. Let me know how you feel. I was really surprised that when I posted that video last night about the AR-15 carry handle, it's one of those things where I was quite surprised. So give that video a view, and tell me what you think about that. Tell me anything. Tell me my hairstyle sucks or whatever. My girlfriend hates it, so why wouldn't you? Unless you're into guys, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, I'm gonna stop this video right now. Have a good day.